In the gray morning fog of the great city, where the streets seemed like endless veins of exhaustion, Audrey and Maddie finally packed their things into the old SUV. Audrey was 35 years old and Maddie was 32. But in their eyes was reflected a weariness accumulated over the years, like dust on forgotten shelves. The city suffocated them with its frantic pace, the endless meetings, the calls that echoed in the emptiness of their souls, and the faces that flashed past, leaving no trace. Audrey, the elder, was always the one who carried everything: the office job where every day was like running on a treadmill, and the memories of her husband, who passed away 2 years ago, leaving behind only an echo of silence in the apartment. Maddie, the younger, battled her own shadow. The loss of her job during the pandemic, the breakup with the man she loved, and the feeling that life had slipped away like sand through her fingers. They were sisters, two halves of one broken heart, and in those days loneliness covered them in waves, heavy as an autumn rain. The pain of loss burned inside. Anxiety whispered about tomorrow, full of the same gray shadows. "We won't make it if we don't run away," Audrey thought, gripping the steering wheel as the car pulled onto the highway. The road twisted through suburbs where houses still clung to patches of green but were already dissolving into concrete. Maddie sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window where trees flickered past, like ghosts of lost freedom. "Remember how we used to run to the river as kids?" she said softly. Her voice trembled like a leaf in the wind. "Mom used to say that water washes away all troubles." Audrey nodded, without taking her eyes off the road. "Yes, sis, and I believe she was right. This city, it sucks the soul right out of you. I feel empty, like an old vase without flowers." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken pain. They hadn't cried yet. It wasn't time, but tears burned in their eyes, and in their chests a mountain of loneliness grew. Each one carried her own cross. Audrey, the guilt for failing to hold her family together. Maddie, the fear that she would never find her place in the world. The city's rush was like shackles, and escape seemed like the only salvation, fragile like the first ray of sun through the clouds. After 3 hours, they turned onto a forest trail where the asphalt gave way to gravel, and the sound of cars was replaced by the whisper of leaves. The river waited for them ahead. A wide, lazy ribbon scattered with the gold of autumn reflections. The forest embraced them like an old friend. Tall pines stretched toward the sky, and underfoot, fallen leaves crackled like a carpet. They chose a clearing by the water, a secluded spot where the river meandered, forming a quiet backwater. "It's good here," Maddie whispered, getting out of the car and inhaling the damp, clean air. "Can you feel it? As if the city never existed." Audrey smiled for the first time that morning, but a shadow still lingered in her eyes. They started setting up camp, unfolding the tent. Its fabric flapped in the wind like a flag of hope. Maddie built a fire, a small flame that licked the dry branches, driving away the cold of loneliness. Audrey took out a thermos of tea, and they sat on a log, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The silence of the forest enveloped them like a warm blanket. There was no rush here, no judging eyes, only the rustle of the wind and the lapping of the water. "Tell me about him," Maddie asked, hugging her knees. "About how you met?" Audrey sighed, and the words flowed like a river. About meeting her husband in a cafe, about the laughter that echoed in their tiny apartment, about the dreams of children that never came true. "I thought we were forever," she finished. Her voice broke. "And now, emptiness." Maddie took her hand. Their fingers intertwined tightly, like the roots of trees. "We both lost a piece of ourselves, Aud. But here, together, I feel hope, as if the forest is whispering, 'You are not alone.'" Into those words flowed the first spark, the acceptance of pain, like an old friend, and a quiet fight for the light. They talked for hours, about their childhood, about their mother who passed away too soon, about future plans that now seemed not so distant. The fire crackled, casting shadows on their faces. And in that silence, loneliness melted away, giving way to sisterly warmth. Maddie remembered building forts by the river as children, and tears welled up, not from grief, but from the gentle joy that was returning like a bird to its nest. As the sun set, they cooked dinner, a simple vegetable stew, the aroma of which mingled with the scent of smoke. "To us," Audrey raised her mug. "To finding peace and light," Maddie added, "a flicker at the end of the tunnel." Their laughter was quiet but sincere, and in it a fragile yet living hope shone through. Night fell softly upon the forest. Stars lit up over the river like a promise. They climbed into the tent, lying shoulder to shoulder, and Maddie whispered, "Thank you for coming with me. Without you, I would have drowned in that pain." Audrey stroked her hair. "We're in this together, sis, always." In that minute, tears rolled down their cheeks, tears of purification mixed with the joy of simple human closeness. The pain of loss hadn't vanished, but it had softened, illuminated by the kindness of the forest and the river, and a sense of light, the kind that heals the soul, was born in their hearts. But in the silence of the night, as the sisters drifted off to sleep under the rustle of leaves, a faint sound was heard. Not the wind, nor the water, but something alive, something watchful. A shadow flashed in the bushes at the edge of the clearing, a gray silhouette with a white flash on its chest. Eyes glowed in the moonlight like two distant, watchful flames. A cat was looking at their fire, frozen, ready to flee, and in its gaze lurked the same lostness as in the sisters' souls. What drove it through the woods on this cold autumn night? Maddie, without waking, felt a slight chill, as if the forest was whispering, "Your salvation awaits more than just you." Morning would bring the answer, but for now, the shadow dissolved into the darkness, leaving behind an echo of loneliness that was just about to turn into hope. Morning in the forest woke up softly, like a sigh of relief after a long night. The sun broke through the pine crowns in golden rays, painting the river in the colors of hope. But in Audrey's and Maddie's hearts, the shadow of yesterday's pain still lingered. They crawled out of the tent, yawning and stretching. Their faces were wrinkled like the pages of an old book full of unspoken lines. Audrey rekindled the fire. Her movements were mechanical, as if she still carried the burden of the city's frenzy on her shoulders. Memories of the empty apartment, where one person's steps echoed, and the fear that loneliness had become her constant companion. "Another day," she thought, stirring the oatmeal in the pot. "Maybe today the pain will subside, even a little." Maddie, sitting on the log with a mug of tea, looked at the water, and the same anxiety rippled in her eyes. The loss of her job, the broken dreams of a family, the feeling that life had passed her by, leaving only the echo of someone else's happiness. "We're here to heal," she whispered to herself, "but for some reason it's still cold inside, as if winter is coming." Loneliness covered them again, quiet yet persistent like the fog over the river, and in that silence the forest seemed not like a salvation, but a mirror of their internal storms. After breakfast, they decided to take a walk. The path wound along the river, strewn with fallen leaves, crunching underfoot like fragile memories. "Let's just walk without talking," Audrey suggested, taking her sister's arm. "Let the forest tell its own story." Maddie nodded, and they moved forward, shoulder to shoulder, feeling the fresh air fill their lungs, but not quite touch their souls. The wind whispered in the crowns, birds sang somewhere high above, but a lost quality pervaded their steps. Two women searching in nature for what they couldn't find in people. They walked past an old oak whose roots were entwined like their own destinies. And suddenly, Maddie stopped, listening. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. "It's like someone's watching." Audrey froze, looking around. Nothing in the bushes, only rustling. "Probably a squirrel," she replied, but her voice wavered. "Or our imagination." After last night, they remembered that rustle, the shadow in the dark, and the anxiety struck sharper. What if the forest holds its own secrets, full of pain, just like them? The path turned toward the thicket, where the trees stood denser and the light barely pierced through. And that's when they saw him. On a low branch of an old pine, about 10 yards away, sat a cat, gray as the autumn dusk, with a white chest that glowed like a patch on a torn sole. Its eyes, yellow as autumn leaves, burned with a strained gleam. Not fear, but a challenge, ready to burst into flight or attack at any moment. Its fur was ruffled, its tail, a short stump, trembled, and its body was taut like a bowstring. The cat didn't meow or purr. It just stared, breathing heavily, and in that gaze was hidden an entire story of despair. Maddie froze first, her heart clenched into a fist. "Oh, God!" she exhaled, not moving. "Look at him, Audrey. That's not a wild animal. And that white chest? He's domestic, abandoned." Audrey squinted, and the pain in her chest echoed. She saw in the cat a reflection of their own lostness, a creature torn from warmth, abandoned to the mercy of the cold. "Yes," she whispered. "His eyes are so human, full of pain." The cat lifted its lip slightly, showing its fangs. A hiss broke from its lips, quiet but furious, like the cry of a soul tormented by betrayal. Maddie took a tiny step forward, and the cat twitched, its claws digging into the bark, ready to leap. "Don't go closer," Audrey warned, grabbing her sister's elbow. "He's scared. He might bite." But Maddie couldn't look away. In that gray ball of fur, she saw herself, feral with loneliness, fighting for survival in a world that had turned its back. "He's not mean," she said firmly, though her voice shook. "Just broken. Look at his paws and the scars. Oh, Aud, he's been hurt. And winter is coming now. Snow, freezing temperatures. He won't survive." The words hung in the air, heavy with truth, and the anxiety in their hearts grew into a sharp pain for this creature, for all the abandoned ones, for themselves. The cat turned its head, ears pressed down, and in its posture was such vulnerability that Maddie felt tears in her eyes. "We can't just leave," she whispered. "We can't leave him to die here alone. He's like us, lost." Audrey nodded, swallowing a lump in her throat. "You're right. But how? He sees us as enemies." In that moment, a spark ignited in them, a fragile hope, like the first ray of light, and an acceptance. Maybe their escape from the city wasn't accidental? A calling of fate to help someone who needed light as much as they did. They retreated slowly, without turning their backs. The cat watched, unblinking. Its body trembled with tension. "Let's leave some food," Maddie suggested when they returned to camp. "Tuna from the can, and we'll step away and see if he comes down." Audrey opened the can. The aroma spread across the clearing, and they placed a portion at the base of the pine, whispering, "We'll be back. Don't be afraid." The fight for this little creature ignited a fire in them, a quiet determination that overcame their own pain. In the evening, sitting by the fire, they talked about him for hours. "Imagine how he purred once in someone's hands," Maddie sighed. "And now we're going to change that," Audrey replied, hugging her sister. "Together." Tears welled up, not just from pity, but from joy. In caring for the cat, they found a purpose, cleansing their own wounds. The light in their souls glowed warmer, promising healing. But when night fell again, and the sisters were dozing in the tent, a rustling sound was heard closer, more persistent. Had the cat come down, or was it just the wind? And what if, beneath that gray fur, lay a story capable of tearing their hearts apart? The third day in the woods began with the first rays piercing the crowns. But the silence of the clearing felt oppressive, full of unseen tension. The gray cat with the white chest was already waiting on its branch, low and convenient for observation. Its body was frozen in a tense posture, like a sentry on duty. Yellow, watchful eyes darted across the clearing, ears flattened against its head, the fur on the scruff slightly ruffled, and the short stump of a tail twitched, betraying inner anxiety. The white chest rose raggedly. Its breathing was hoarse and interrupted, a consequence of the hunger and cold that were already seeping into its bones. It was not a parrot clinging to a perch on a whim. This was a survivor, for whom the branch served as a fortress, the only refuge from a world full of shadows and blows. Maddie came out of the tent first, pausing a few steps away. Her heart ached at the sight of the gray figure. "He hasn't come down since dawn. He sits like a guardian, hungry but stubborn. That white chest. It glows like a lighthouse in the fog, but his eyes are pure darkness." Audrey approached quietly, not raising her gaze too sharply so as not to frighten him. "Yes, sis, he eats our offerings, but he returns here. The branch is his safe home. After everything that happened to him, who can blame him?" They knew. Yesterday the cat had come down for the first can of tuna left at the pine's roots. He ate it all, licking up every drop, but didn't linger for a second. His tracks were everywhere, small paw prints in the soft dirt, shed wisps of gray fur mixed with the smell of fish that still lingered in the air. He hadn't gone far. The forest was his territory, a circle of a couple of miles where he hunted mice and hid from foxes, but after eating he always returned to the branch, climbing the trunk with a nimbleness born of necessity. "He devoured yesterday's tuna whole," Maddie whispered, remembering how they found the empty can, tipped on its side. "Not a crumb, but then the rustling in the crowns, and he's back up there. It's as if the food is a truce, but not peace." The cat turned its head toward them. Its ears flickered slightly, catching their voices. Its body tensed up harder. It didn't hiss or leap, but a shadow flickered in its yellow eyes. A mix of curiosity and fear, like a child reaching for a hand but expecting a trick. The white chest shimmered in the morning light, highlighting the leanness of the ribs showing under the fur. And Maddie felt a pang of pain for this creature clinging to life with its claws, lonely in its silent vigil. Without losing time, they began the ritual. The third day required steps closer before their departure separated them forever. Audrey opened a new can of tuna. The aroma spread thick, salty, enticing to anyone who knew the taste of hunger. They placed it at the base of the pine, exactly where they did yesterday, but added a spoonful of water so that the shimmer of the drops would deter insects and tease his nose. "Here, Gray," Maddie said softly, almost whispering, stepping back. "Another one for your white chest, so it rises easier." The cat didn't stir immediately. It sat, staring down, its nose twitching, catching the scent. Its body leaned forward slightly, but its paws dug into the bark more tightly. Its ears spun like antennae. The splash of the river in the distance, the rustle of leaves from the wind, their breathing. Everything was fixed, evaluated. Finally, when the sisters moved behind the tent, holding their breath, he came down. He clung to the trunk, his paws bending unevenly, betraying an old limp in his hind leg, but his movements were precise, like a shadow's. Reaching the ground, he froze, sniffed the air, his white chest puffing from a deep inhale, and then darted to the can. His nose buried itself, his tongue worked greedily, swallowing chunks with a slurping sound that echoed in the silence. He ate everything, tipped the can over, licked the insides and even the dirt around it. His body relaxed for a moment, his shoulders dropped, his tail stopped twitching. But the food did not break his watchfulness. Having finished eating, he suddenly raised his head, his ears stood up straight, and he sprang back to the branch up the trunk, clinging with his claws until he settled on his post, licking his whiskers, his eyes back on the clearing. Returning an hour later, they saw the fresh, deep claw marks in the bark, the empty can lying in the leaves, and a patch of wet dirt where water droplets mixed with his saliva. "He ate?" Audrey exhaled, squatting down. Her fingers touched the grooves. "The whole thing, like yesterday." "But he came back. Why, Gray? Is this branch your prison or your shield?" Maddie nodded, tears welling up, not out of self-pity, but at the sight of the gray figure above, sitting curled up, but not sleeping. The white chest rose evenly now after the meal, but his eyes were open, watching them. "He takes our gifts, but he doesn't trust. The branch is his world. Awed, it's high up where no one can reach him. After what he's been through, abandoned, beaten, we leave Tuna, and he leaves us hope. A tiny bit, but a bright one." In that moment, a spark of acceptance flared in them, that the cat was teaching them patience, a fight for every glance, and they decided that evening to move the bait closer to the car to lure him toward their departure. The day was drawing to a close, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain, and they left the second portion of Tuna at the edge of the clearing, just a yard from the wheel. Hiding, the sisters watched. The cat came down faster, his body low to the ground, his paws stepping silently. The white chest glowed in the twilight like a ghost. He sniffed, froze, but hunger won. He buried his nose, ate hurriedly, his tail twitching with pleasure mixed with fear. Having finished, he didn't retreat into the thicket. He circled the car, his nose touching the tires. His eyes slid across the windows, and a flicker of doubt crossed his yellow pupils. Then a jump onto a branch, but a lower one, almost at eye level. "He's hesitating," Maddie whispered. Tears streamed down her face. "He's almost ours." The struggle for him cleared the air. The light of goodness broke through the autumn gloom, promising warmth. But when night fell, the cat suddenly jumped closer to the tent and froze, staring into the darkness. What drove him off the branch at this hour? Hunger anew, or the shadow of the past whispering about a new trap? The fourth day in the woods awoke in a cold fog that settled over the river like a shroud over dying hope, and Audrey and Maddie crawled out of the tent with a heaviness in their chests that grew with every hour. Departure loomed ahead. Just 4 days, a short gulp of freedom, and now time was running out, leaving a taste of loss. The car was already packed, the tent folded, the fire pit cold, and the silence of the clearing seemed like a mockery of their dreams of salvation. But everything paled before the pine. The gray cat with the white chest sat on its lower branch, closer than ever. Its body was curled into a ball, its yellow eyes, full of watchful agony, followed them unblinking. Its fur was damp with dew, hanging in clumps, revealing its thin sides. Its paws were tucked unevenly, and the short stump of a tail was pressed against its body, like a reminder of someone's cruel hand. The white chest rose intermittently, its breath escaped in cloudy puffs of steam, and in that gray figure lay all the pain of the forest. An abandoned creature clinging to the branch, not out of whim, but out of despair. Lonely in a world where every rustle was a threat. Maddie froze first, her heart clenched. He didn't leave at night. Awed, he's sitting here, watching, as if he's waiting. But those desperate eyes are pure anxiety. What if we can't do it? We'll leave, and winter will finish him off, just as it finishes off all the lost ones. Audrey nodded, approaching closer, but slowly, palms up. Yes, the white chest is trembling. He devoured our bait yesterday, circled the car, but returned to the branch. And we are his jailers today. Anxiety covered them in waves. Losing the cat felt like losing a piece of the light they had just ignited within themselves, and the forest, whispering with the wind, reflected that emptiness. Fallen leaves crunched underfoot like broken bones. The river splashed mournfully, reminding them of time slipping away. Yesterday at sunset, on the third day, when the cat touched the rope and circled the car, they couldn't bear it. They decided that without an improvised carrier, the capture would end in disaster. "We need a box," Maddie had said. Her voice was firm then, despite the tears. "If we catch him under a blanket, where will we put him? He'll run wild in the car, scratch everything up." "There's that delivery box in the trunk for the odds and ends. Bottles, rags, old maps. We'll clean it out so they're not scattered in the cabin." They rummaged in the trunk. There, among tools and camping bags, was a cardboard box, sturdy from a delivery, which they had carried with them for months, stuffing it with rope scraps, empty cans, forgotten clothes, and small junk to keep the car from turning into a dumpster. Maddie emptied the contents onto the tarp, wiping the inside with a towel from the tent. "Here, Gray, your temporary lodging. No luxury, but safe." The box stood open by the car with air holes, half covered, beckoning like a promise of warmth. But for the cat, probably like a new cage of fate. The cat jumped off the branch at the sound of their steps, but didn't run away. He froze at the base of the trunk, his nose twitching. His yellow eyes darted toward the box, like a beast assessing a trap. His white chest puffed from a deep breath, his paws dug into the ground. And at that moment, he meowed softly, heartbreakingly, not as a challenge, but as a question. "Who are you?" Audrey opened the can of tuna. The aroma spread thick and salty, enticing to his exhausted body. And Maddie placed it near the car wheel, closer than ever, a mere arm's throw away. "Go on, little guy," she called softly, retreating behind the tent. Her voice trembled. "It's for you. We won't touch you, not yet." The cat didn't move immediately, It sat, its body low to the ground, its tail twitching, its ears spinning, catching their breathing. But hunger, the eternal companion of his loneliness, broke him. He crouched, approaching. His paws stepped silently, the white chest glowing in the fog like a beacon in a storm. Maddie held her breath, clutching the blanket in her hands, old and soft like a mother's embrace. Her heart pounded in unison with his. Now or never. The cat buried its nose in the can, swallowing greedily. Its body relaxed for a moment. Its shoulders dropped, its eyes half closed, its tail still. And in that vulnerability, hope flickered. The acceptance that he was reaching out to them, fighting for a sip of warmth in a cold world. "He's eating, Aud," Maddie whispered, slipping out of hiding, silent as a shadow. "Keep him distracted." Audrey jingled the keys on the other side of the car. "Hey, Gray, look over here!" The cat twitched, but the food held it. He licked the dish, wetting his whiskers. The white chest rose faster from the excitement. Maddie stepped. 1 yard. The blanket surged into the air like a net of fate and covered the gray silhouette. A shriek tore through the silence, piercing, full of agony. Not a cat's, but a human's in its torment. The cat exploded with fury. Its body twisted under the fabric, claws tore at the air, teeth snapped at the edge, aiming for a hand. "Hold him!" Audrey cried, rushing to help, grabbing the edges. "Don't let go!" Maddie pressed down harder, but a paw slashed out, sharp as a knife. Across her palm, blood spurted red onto the gray fur. A searing pain shot to the bone. "Ah!" she screamed. Tears welled up, but she didn't let go. I'm sorry, Gray. We're saving you." The cat thrashed desperately, scratching and biting through the fabric. Its body bent into an arc, its eyes burning with madness. Flashes of the past in every strike, the white chest soaked with sweat and blood, its tail lashing like a whip. The fight lasted minutes, an eternity. Under the blanket, hands trembled. The box waited open. And finally, in a moment of lull, when the cat became exhausted, hissing hoarsely, they shoved him inside, onto the soft towel. The lid was covered. Tape pressed down the edges so he couldn't break out on the road. Silence fell heavy, interrupted only by muffled moans from the box, low, broken, full of pain and lost trust. Maddie sat on the ground, tying a scarf around her hand. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "We did it." "But listen to him, Aud. He's hitting the cardboard. He hates us now." Audrey knelt beside her, putting her ear to the box. The cat was curled up inside. Its eyes were half closed, its body trembling but alive. And in that was a cleansing, the light of goodness through the tears of sorrow. "No, sis," she whispered, stroking the cardboard. "He's afraid, but we gave him a chance. This is our victory." Joy mixed with guilt. Tears flowed, not of bitterness, but of the joy of the struggle that was healing them, and the forest around them seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The sun broke through the fog, but when they loaded the box into the trunk and drove onto the trail, a groan came from inside, deeper, full of agony, and Maddie froze. What if the scars under that fur are worse than we thought? What awaits us at the clinic? The road from the forest led to the highway, like a snake full of shadows, and Audrey's car rumbled tiredly, carrying them back to the city where the hustle waited like an old wound. The box in the trunk shook with every bump, and muffled moans came from it, low and heart-wrenching, like the weeping of a soul that cannot forget its chains. The gray cat was curled up inside, Its body trembled not from cold, but from terror. Caught, locked up, lonely in the cardboard darkness, where every jolt would remind him of being thrown into the unknown. His fur, matted with dew and sweat, clung to his sides. His paws were tucked in, the short stump of his tail pressed down, his breathing hoarse and interrupted, like that of a hunted animal. Maddie sat in the back seat. "What have we done, Aud? He's hissing in there, scratching the cardboard, as if we are his new tormentors. And if he doesn't make it at the clinic." Audrey clenched the steering wheel. Her gaze in the rear-view mirror caught every rustle. "Hold on, sis. We're taking him toward the light." But those moans, they tear at the soul. He is lost, like we once were, abandoned on the roadside. The pain of losing the cat's trust and his freedom burned inside. Loneliness echoed in their hearts, and the city approached, gray and indifferent, like the one who had left this creature to die. After 2 hours, they drove into the suburbs, where the veterinary clinic hid behind a low fence, a modest building with a sign flickering in the autumn rain. Dr. Helen, a middle-aged woman with hands calloused from care, met them at the door. "What do you have? A wild one?" Maddie nodded, opening the box carefully. The cat arched its back. Yellow eyes full of fury, claws slashed the air, a hiss broke from its lips. Its body was taut in an arc, its tail twitched, and it pressed itself into the corner. "Shivering, abandoned," Maddie whispered. Tears rolled down her face. "From the forest. We caught him today. He eats, but he doesn't trust. Please, take a look." Helen put on gloves. Her gaze softened. "Poor thing. Let's get him a mild sedative so we can examine him. He's frightened, like a child after a storm." They carried the box into the exam room, where the air smelled of antiseptic and hope. And the cat, sensing the needle, wailed, short and piercing. Its body went limp. Its eyes were half closed, but a shadow lingered in them. "Why pain again?" Maddie whispered. "I'm sorry, Gray. This is for your own good." Anxiety thickened like fog. The pain from his moans resonated in their souls, a lost creature fighting for every breath, lonely in the white light of the lamp. The examination began slowly. Helen laid the cat on the table. A gray ball of fur, light as a feather, its body covered in scars that stood out under the lamp. "Oh, God!" she exclaimed. Her fingers froze over his paws. Broken front legs, improperly healed. Bones stick out like broken branches. The hind leg is lame. An old fracture healed crookedly on its own. Maddie gasped, tears welling up. "Who could do that?" Helen carefully turned its neck. "A scar here on the skin from wire. A tightening noose. They probably tried to break him. A deep, fresh scar, about a month old." The cat lay motionless under the sedative. His breathing was even now, but the scars told a story. Multiple burns on his sides, round, from cigarettes, burned down to the flesh where the fur hadn't grown back. The broken tail, an uneven stump, as if cut by an axe. Signs of beatings on his ribs, bruises under the fur, old and new, from a belt or a fist. "Systematically tortured," Helen said quietly. Her voice trembled. "Not once or twice. For a month, maybe longer. And then they dumped him on the highway. I've seen these cases. They leave them to die so they don't have to feed them through the winter." Audrey sank into a chair, her face pale. "On the highway, like trash. This gray cat. He survived there alone on that branch." The words hung heavy with truth. and in their eyes a fragile hope flickered like the first ray of light. The acceptance of this pain, a fight for his bright future. Helen put down her instruments, wiping her hands. Her gaze became serious. "Listen, girls, these aren't just scratches. He needs a full examination, X-rays for all the bones, blood tests, ultrasound for internal damage. The scars may be hiding more, and he's feral, frightened to death. If you take him home now, he might not survive the stress. Leave him with us for a month. We'll try to domesticate him. We'll treat him in peace. Daily injections, bandages, quiet conversations. Our volunteers know what they're doing. He'll learn to trust, step by step." Maddie froze. Tears flowed. "A month? And what if he doesn't want us afterward?" Helen placed a hand on her shoulder. "He will. Animals like him sense kindness. Come visit, talk to him through the bars. This is his chance for a new life." Audrey nodded. Her voice broke. "All right, do everything. He's ours. We'll name him Gray now." The veterinarian's words ignited a fire, a quiet determination, the acceptance that time heals deeper than a knife, and they began to fight for a bright future. A month of waiting, but with hope for a purr at the end. Tears streamed down their faces, not just of sorrow for the scars and the separation, but of joy. In this horrifying truth, like an abyss, lay a cleansing. The kindness of their hands opened the clinic door. Light broke through the darkness, promising healing. "He will live," Helen whispered, placing the cat in a new cage, spacious, with a soft bedding, where he stirred, meowing weakly. "Mister—" Maddie stroked the bars. "Gray, hang in there, little one. We'll be back." The fight for him cleared the air. The warmth of goodness filled the room, and the rain outside stopped, like a sign. They left, placing him in the hands of care, tears on their cheeks, tears of joy from the first step toward home. But when they returned a week later for the first visit, Gray sat in the cage, hissing furiously at their steps, his eyes full of panic. "Stay back!" A month at the clinic flew by like autumn leaves in a whirlwind. Days of waiting, full of an anxiety that burned Audrey and Maddie from within, like an unhealed wound. They came every week, taking turns or together, pressing against the cage bars, whispering words that echoed in the gray silence. "Gray, we're here. Home soon." The gray cat changed slowly. First, the hissing turned into a quiet purr in his sleep. Then he took food from the volunteer's hand. His eyes, yellow as autumn honey, lost their hostility, becoming thoughtful. The scars faded under the ointments, his plastered paws bent carefully, and his body gained strength from the antibiotics and the peace. Helen called, "He's eating on his own, getting tamed. 1 more week, and then home." But pain lurked in their hearts. The separation from this gray creature, which had become a mirror of their loneliness, hurt deeper than expected. Maddie, in her small apartment on the outskirts, where the echo of steps resonated with emptiness, whispered to Audrey on the phone at night, "What if he doesn't recognize us? After all, we caught him by force." Audrey, from her apartment downtown, where the furniture gathered the dust of memories, replied with a sigh, "He will, sis. We are his light in that darkness." Loneliness covered them again, quiet yet persistent, like the rain outside the window, and the city with its noise seemed like a cage where they waited, fighting for the hope of a purr, calling each other every evening. "Did he meow today?" she would ask. "Hold on, Mads. You'll take him home, and everything will change." Finally, the day arrived. Early December. Snow covered the streets in a fluffy blanket, and at the clinic, Helen handed over the box, now familiar, with Gray inside. "He's ready, but be gentle. Read to him, talk to him. He loves voices." "You're taking him, Maddie? Good. Your apartment is a quiet haven." Maddie took the box. Her heart was pounding. "Thank you, Doctor. We won't let you down." Audrey waited for the call in her apartment. Her fingers squeezed the phone. "Tell me everything, sis. How is he in the car?" Gray was silent. His breathing was even, his body relaxed. A month of care had broken the wall of fear, but his eyes, when she looked in, still held a shadow. "Who are you now?" Maddie's apartment met them with warmth. Small, with a rug by the window and a bowl full of tuna. But for the cat, it was a new forest, full of shadows. She opened the box in the corner of the living room and stepped back. "Home, Gray. You're home." He darted out in a flash, a gray whirlwind that dove into an old dusty shoebox standing by the cabinet, and hid there, curled into a ball. His eyes gleamed from the darkness, his ears flattened, the stump of his tail tucked in. A quiet hiss escaped. Maddie froze by the door, tears welling up. Anxiety struck. "He's not eating, Aud. He's not drinking. He just stares, as if I'm a ghost from the past." Over the phone, Audrey whispered, "Sit by the door and read. Just be there. I'm here with you." The first days dragged on like an eternity in a cage. Gray didn't leave the box. His body trembled at the slightest sound, the creak of the door, the clatter of a spoon in the kitchen. His breathing quickened, his paws scratched the cardboard from the inside, like claws on the memory of pain. He didn't touch the bowl. The tuna went stale. The water stagnated. He only licked it once at night, when silence fell, and Maddie heard a rustle. He ate a little, but during the day he hissed at her approach. His eyes were full of panic, his body arched, ready to strike. "Why is he so afraid?" Maddie asked Audrey over video, her voice breaking as she showed the box on the screen. "A month at the clinic, we thought he changed." Audrey, with a mug of tea in her kitchen, sighed. "It takes time, Maddie. The scars aren't just on his skin. Sit by the door, read. As we promised, just be there. Tell me tomorrow what happened." Maddie nodded, sat on the floor a yard from the box, and opened a book, an old one with yellowed pages, their mother's fairy tales. "Once upon a time, there was a cat, gray as a shadow, but with a heart of gold." Her voice was quiet, even, like a lullaby. The words flowed slowly, with pauses, so as not to frighten him. Gray didn't move, but his ears twitched slightly, barely noticeable. His breathing leveled out, his body relaxed for a moment. She read for hours, not moving closer, just being present. And the cat found friends who whispered to him at night. The pain of the cat's loneliness resonated in her, a lost creature hiding from the world, and the anxiety melted, giving way to acceptance. "I'm here, Gray. I won't leave." In the evening, she called Audrey. "He's listening, sis. His ears are moving. Maybe he'll come out tomorrow?" After 3 days, progress came unnoticed. At night, the rustling intensified. He came out, sniffed the bowl, ate half the tuna, and licked the water. His paws stepped silently on the rug. His body was tense, but not panicked. In the morning, the box was moved slightly. He had returned to it, but didn't hide as deeply. Yellow, curious eyes peered out. "He's eating at night," Maddie told Audrey on the phone. Her voice trembled with excitement. "And he listens. When I read, his ears move." Audrey laughed quietly. "See, step by step, leave a toy by the box, a ball with a feather. Tell me when he touches it." Hope flared, quiet and warm, like a fire in a fireplace. They fought for him, step by step, changing tactics, leaving a toy by the box, whispering, "Play, little one, the world is kind." Gray nudged it with his nose once at night. The rustle spread, and Maddie woke up in tears, tears of joy that he was touching, trying. "He came out, Aud," she cried on the phone that morning. "He nudged the ball a little, but it's—" The struggle was gaining strength. Every morning, fresh food, every evening, reading by the door, presents without pressure. And in this ritual their loneliness and his own melted away. Audrey called daily. "Gray, hang in there. Maddie's yours, and I'm her sister. We're family." On the 7th day, a miracle happened quietly. Gray came out during the day when Maddie was sitting by the window. His body crept along the wall, his paws limped slightly, the scars faded under his fur, but his eyes weren't full of fear, but of contemplation. He sat by the box, licked his lips, and meowed softly, like a sigh. "Mister!" Maddie froze. Tears streamed down her cheeks, tears of purification mixed with joy. "Gray, you're here." He didn't approach, but he didn't hide. His breathing was even, his tail twitched, a sign of trust, fragile as the first snow. The light of kindness filled the room. The pain of the past receded, leaving room for warmth. The cat was fighting, and she was fighting with him, shoulder to shoulder. Over the phone, Audrey heard, "He meowed at me, sis. During the day. I'm crying." Audrey sobbed in response. "Cry, Maddie. Those are tears of light. We did it." Their tears mixed over the wire, sorrow for the path they had taken, and joy for the step forward, cleansing their souls just as the river washes away dirt. At night, when Maddie fell asleep, a rustle was heard. Gray came out further, toward the kitchen, but froze at the threshold, staring into the darkness. What was driving him forward? Hunger, or the shadow of memories whispering, "Don't believe." Too fast. December crept into the city with a blanket of snow, wrapping the streets in a silence that echoed in Maddie's empty rooms, where every day began with anxiety, quiet but persistent, like the frost on the window. Gray, the gray cat, whose scars were fading under his fur, was still a shadow. He only left the box at night, creeping, his body low to the floor. His paws stepped silently, his breathing interrupted, like a memory of the forest. During the day, a hiss at any rustle. Yellow, watchful eyes, his body pressed into the corner, his stump of a tail tucked in, as if waiting for a blow from the darkness. Maddie woke up to these sounds, her heart clenching with pain. "He's lonely, Aud, just like me. He hides because the world is pain." Over the phone, Audrey, in her apartment where coffee cooled in a mug, replied softly, "Patience, sis. He's eating your stories. Tell me, did he come out today?" Loneliness covered them anew. The lost creature in the box reflected their own shadows, and the December evening seemed endless, full of rustles that wouldn't cease. Weeks passed, from early December to the middle. The snow outside thickened, and Gray changed like a river under the ice. Slowly, imperceptibly but inexorably. First, he began to come out when Maddie was in the room. Not immediately, but after an hour of reading by the door. Her voice flowed quietly, like a snowfall, and the cat stepped into the light, cautiously but bravely. His body crept along the wall, pressing against the wallpaper. His fur rubbed against the plaster, his paws limped slightly, the scars pulling. But he didn't hiss, he only breathed faster. His eyes slid toward her sideways, his tail twitched like a question. "He came out, Aud," Maddie whispered into the phone, not moving so as not to scare him away. "He pressed himself against the wall, watching, but he's not running away." Audrey sighed with relief. "See? Your voice is his anchor. Move slowly, don't stare directly. Cats hate staring." Maddie nodded, learning. She stood up smoothly, as if moving through water, her hands down, her steps barely audible. Her gaze on the floor, but she caught him out of the corner of her eye. A gray silhouette by the baseboard. His breathing was steadier, his body not arched. Hope was breaking through, fragile as the first ray through the blinds. The acceptance that progress was in these tiny increments. A struggle for every yard of the rug where Gray dared to creep. By Christmas, at the end of December, he grew bolder. He came out into the middle of the room when Maddie sat on the couch with a book. His body froze in the center, his paws spread, his tail slightly raised. His eyes were not panicked, but thoughtful. His breathing was deep, like a sigh of relief. "Look, Aud," Maddie whispered over the video call, pointing the camera at him. "In the middle, not by the wall." Audrey, in her apartment where the Christmas tree blinked lonely, gasped. "Oh, God, he trusts you. Bring him toys. I bought a mouse on a string, a feather." The next day, Audrey arrived with a bag containing soft balls and a rope with a knot, a reminder of the forest toy. "Here, Gray," she said quietly, kneeling by the box, not approaching too closely. "For you, from Aunt Audrey." Gray peered out, his nose twitching, his body tense. But he didn't hide. He nudged the rope with his paw, a faint push. The ball rolled and the cat darted after it, his paws scrambled on the rug, his eyes flashing, not with fear, but with a spark. "He's playing," Maddie exclaimed. Tears welled up. "He's nudging it, Aud, like at the clinic." Audrey smiled, her voice trembling. "Remember the forest? He touched it then, and now he's here with us." Their dialogue was quiet, full of warmth. "Move slowly," Audrey reminded her. "Don't stare. Let him come to you." The struggle was gaining strength. They changed tactics. They left toys closer, whispering, "Good Gray, you're free here." January brought frost, the windows fogged up, and Gray took new steps. He sat in the middle of the room longer, his body relaxed, his paws stretched out, his stump of a tail lazily swished when Maddie read. "He's lying down, Aud," she reported over the phone. "He doesn't hide when I walk in." The scars were almost invisible under his fur. Audrey sent photos of toys. "Buy a laser, cats love them, but quietly, without sudden movements." Maddie guided the red dot across the floor. Gray jumped, tentatively at first, his paws limping, but then faster. His body bent in the jump, his eyes flashing, his breathing quickening with excitement. "He's jumping!" she cried into the phone. "Like a kitten, Aud. He's forgotten the pain." Hope blossomed, quiet yet alive, like a snowdrop under the snow. The acceptance of the scars is part of him, a fight for joy in every push of the ball. They called each other more often. "He meowed at me today," Maddie shared. "Not a hiss, a meow." Audrey answered, "My husband, he would be smiling. You're giving him a family, sis." By the end of January, the progress was tangible. Gray came out on his own when Maddie entered, sitting by her feet, not touching, but close. His body was warm, his breathing even, his eyes half closed in a daze. "He's next to me, Aud," Maddie whispered. A photo in the chat, almost touching. Audrey came over, sat on the floor. "Hey, Gray, Auntie is here." The cat didn't hiss. He sniffed her hand from afar, his nose twitching, his tail swished. Tears welled up, not from pain, but from light. "We did it," Maddie whispered, hugging her sister. "Step by step." Joy cleansed the air. Tears rolled down their cheeks, tears of kindness that healed their wounds and his, leaving warmth in the room where the gray cat finally felt safe. Audrey nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, he's ours forever." April crept into the city gently, like the breath of awakening after a long winter. Months had passed since that autumn day by the river, where the gray cat on the pine was only a shadow of despair, a look full of primal challenge and hidden torment. Now spring whispered promises through the open windows of Maddie's apartment, where the air was filled with the scent of blossoming cherry trees outside and freshly brewed coffee in the kitchen. Maddie stood by the windowsill, cupping her mug in her hands, and looked at Gray. He sat there, a gray silhouette against the azure sky, his body completely relaxed, his front paws stretched out, like a cat who had known the taste of peace. And his short stump of a tail swayed lazily in sync with the distant singing of birds. 6 months since that crazy capture in the forest when he scratched and hissed under the blanket. Through a month at the clinic where the scars opened up like the pages of a nightmare book. Through the first nights in the box by the cabinet when he neither ate nor drank, hiding from the world, and he had changed beyond recognition. His fur now shone, thick and soft, hiding the fading scars from burns and beatings. The limp was gone. His paws stepped confidently, gracefully, without the clumsiness that betrayed the broken bones. His eyes, yellow as autumn leaves, no longer burned with fierce fear. A quiet wisdom warmed them, as if, having survived hell, he had learned to distinguish light from shadow. Gray turned his head, his whiskers twitched, and he meowed low, contentedly, as if saying, "I'm here, and this is my home." Maddie smiled, but a familiar anxiety pricked her chest, an echo of the pain that hadn't completely vanished despite 6 months of care and healing. Her apartment, small and cozy, with a rug sprinkled with crumbs from Gray's toys and mini-shelves lined with the storybooks she read to him at night, now seemed not like a cage of loneliness, but a nest. But the shadows of the past clung on. The lost job during the pandemic still hung like a sword of Damocles. The breakup with the man she loved left scars on her soul, just like Gray's body. And at night, she woke up from nightmares. An empty room, the echo of one person's steps, the fear that life would remain gray, like the cat's fur on that first day. "Gray," she whispered, putting her mug on the windowsill and squatting beside him. "You saved us, Gray, from a wild beast into a purring friend. And us? Were we able to save ourselves?" The cat turned, his nose touching her hand, a light, warm touch, full of trust, and he began to purr. The vibration passed over her palm like a reminder. "Together. We are together." Maddie felt tears burn her eyes, not from grief, but from the fragile hope that had seemed impossible half a year ago. She picked up the phone and dialed Audrey. "Sis, come over. Gray is on the windowsill. It's spring, and he's waiting for his auntie." Audrey arrived an hour later, as always, with a bag of fresh pastries from the nearest bakery. The aroma of cinnamon and vanilla spread through the hallway, and with the same bag where she kept new toys for Gray. A feather on a string, a soft ball with a bell. Her own apartment downtown, with a view of the noisy street, where memories of her husband, his laughter in the kitchen, the empty armchair by the window, still burned like an unhealed wound, but 6 months had changed her. The smile appeared more often, the office job, though routine, no longer felt like a prison, and Maddie's calls in the evenings, Gray meowed today, became an anchor that pulled her toward the light. "Maddie!" she cried, rushing through the door. The bag rustled in her hands. "Tell me everything. I can't believe that wild cat is ours now." Maddie hugged her sister tightly. Their shoulders touched, just like that cold night by the campfire in the forest. "He's different, Aud. See for yourself." They walked into the living room, where the sun poured gold into the room, and Gray jumped down from the windowsill gracefully, his body arched in greeting, like the master of the house, not a refugee. He circled them, his nose twitching, sniffing Audrey's feet, the familiar scent of the auntie, who brought toys and whispered stories through the bars of the cage at the clinic. His tail rose in question, and he meowed low, confidently. "Meh, hello?" Audrey froze. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes. Her hand reached out, but stopped. "Oh, my God, Gray! Aunt Audrey is here, Gray. Do you remember me?" After all the scratches in the forest, the hissing in the box. The cat did not retreat. He walked closer, his nose nudging her palm. His fur was soft and warm, his breathing even, like the rhythm of trust, and he purred. The vibration passed through her fingers like the electricity of joy. "He remembers," Maddie whispered, squatting on the rug beside her. Her voice trembled. "6 months ago he was a ghost on a branch, gray with ruffled fur, eyes full of rage and fear. We fed him tuna, lured him closer, and he hissed, scratched during the capture, blood on my hand. And now look, Aud, he's greeting you." Audrey sat on the floor, the pastries forgotten on the table, and Gray jumped onto her lap. Not immediately, but confidently. His body was heavy and cozy, his paws kneaded softly, his eyes half closed in bliss. "Tell me how it all happened," she asked, stroking his back carefully, her fingers passing over the scars that were now barely perceptible. "These months, when he started purring, when he came out of the box, not just at night." Maddie sat across from her, legs crossed, just like those evenings by the campfire in the forest. And the words flowed like a river, full of memories that burned and healed at the same time. "Slowly, sis, remember October? The capture, the shriek, the claws, the blood? At the clinic, the scars, the cigarette burns, the broken paws, the wire on his neck?" Helen said, "A month here, or he won't survive." "We came," whispered through the bars. "Gray, hang in there." November, the first days at home. The shoebox in the corner. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink. He hissed at every sound. I sat by the door, reading Mom's fairy tales for hours. "A cat who found friends," you called. "Patience, Maddie." He listens, and he did listen. His ears twitched. December, he ate at night, nudged the rope you brought. You came with toys for a gray hero. January, he came out into the middle of the room, sat without hiding, jumping for the laser, forgetting his limp. February, he purred under my hand, but flinched at shadows. March, he slept on the couch, meowed for food. Now, April, he's the king of the windowsill. Her voice broke. Tears streamed down her face. The hardship, oh, Aud, the nights he cried in the corner, I cried into my pillow. What if it doesn't work out? You reminded me step by step, just like we did in the forest. And he showed us patience. He overcomes the pain. Audrey nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Her hand stroked Gray, who now lay on her lap. His body was warm, his breathing synchronized with hers. And my problems? My husband, the empty apartment where the echo of steps is like a knife. The job that suffocates me. It seemed like the end, but look at him. They tortured him for months, burns, fractures, choked him with wire, dumped him on the highway to die like garbage. Winter in the forest, hunger, loneliness, the branch as his only shield, and he survived. He's purring. Our troubles are dust in comparison, Maddie. He taught us that pain is not a sentence. You can survive if you hold on to the light. For us, for your sister, for home. Gray purred louder. He nudged Maddie's knee with his paw. His nose pressed into Audrey's palm. A light touch, but full of love. His body relaxed, like a cat who had known safety. See? Maddie whispered, taking her sister's hand over him. He loves. 6 months. And we've all changed. I found a quiet job at the library. You're smiling, Aud. You visit more often. You talk about plans. A trip this summer. Yes, maybe. And he, from a wild creature, our anchor, showed us. Together, we'll overcome. Your husband's shadow, my emptiness, they are melting like snow. He fought alone in the forest. And now we are 3. The calls in the evenings. Gray jumped today. Your visits with toys, my reading. Family? Audrey sobbed, hugging Maddie over the cat. Tears dripped onto Gray's fur, but he didn't flinch. He only purred louder. The vibration passed through them like an embrace. Yes, sis, he is a teacher. The gray cat who became our heart. Remember in February when he flinched from your hand? I said, slowly, and now we're petting him together. Our tears aren't of sorrow, they are of light. He showed us, trust is a choice. We chose, and we won. Gray stretched, jumped onto the rug, and nudged the ball that rolled to Maddie's feet. His eyes flashed with playfulness, not fear, but joy. His paws scrambled on the fabric, his tail swished. Play, little one, Maddie whispered, tossing the toy gently. The world is kind. The cat jumped, his body arching in flight. Scars are memories, not chains. Outside the window, spring was blooming. Birds sang, leaves turned green, and the river in memory whispered of a beginning. We are family, Audrey said, wiping away her tears. Forever? With him, anything is possible. Their tears mixed, tears of joy, cleansing the soul just as spring rain washes away winter. Pain melted, leaving warmth, the kindness that healed all 3. Gray returned to their laps, purring, and in that sound was all the victory, all the love, all the home.